Whispers in the void. 342 days into my assignment on Asteria 7, I started talking to the moss. Not the regular kind that grew in damp corners of your bathroom back on Earth, but the iridescent variety we'd cultivated in the xenobiology lab. It wasn't that I expected a response, but after 11 months of minimal human contact, I'd have conversed with my own shadow if it had shown any interest. Looking vibrant today, I told the luminous patch of purple-green fluff beneath the growth lamps. That new nutrient solution seems to agree with you. Dr. Nolan Reed, distinguished xenobiologist, reduced to complimenting fungal colonies. If my colleagues at the Terrestrial Sciences Division could see me now, they'd revoke my credentials on principle alone. The station's AI chimed in, its synthetic voice carrying that perpetual tone of judgment it had adopted since I'd reprogrammed its vocabulary subroutines out of boredom 3 months ago. Dr. Reed, your vital signs indicate elevated cortisol levels. Would you like me to dispense a mood stabilizer from medical supplies? I'm fine, Bell, I replied, squinting at a peculiar formation in the moss sample. Just focused. Bell, biometric evaluation and logistics liaison, made a sound suspiciously like a sniff. Talking to plants indicates psychological stress in prolonged isolation scenarios. Corporate protocol recommends. Corporate protocol can recommend itself into the nearest black hole, I interrupted. Unless they want to send me an actual human companion instead of another shipment of freeze-dried protein cubes. The AI fell silent, likely adding another note to my psychological evaluation file. I'd stopped caring about those assessments around day 73. I leaned closer to the moss sample, frowning. Something was different. The growth pattern had changed overnight, forming what appeared to be a deliberate pattern, concentric rings with tiny filaments radiating outward like a stylized sun. I hadn't programmed that. The moss shouldn't be capable of organized growth patterns without specific genetic modifications. Bell, has anyone else accessed the lab in the last 24 hours? Negative, Dr. Reed. You are the only authorized personnel on Asteria 7. That was the official story. Just me, an AI with attitude problems, and enough scientific equipment to keep a research university busy for decades. Asteria 7 orbited a gas giant in a system that corporate interests had deemed potentially resource viable but currently economically impractical. Translation: they'd built this place during the mining boom, then abandoned it when the profits didn't materialize fast enough, repurposing it as a research station where they could exile scientists whose theories were too speculative but whose contracts were too expensive to terminate. I took a sample of the strangely patterned moss and slid it under the molecular scanner. Nothing unusual in its composition, just the same engineered organisms we'd been cultivating for months. Bell, review security feeds from the lab, last 24 hours. The AI obliged, projecting holographic feeds onto the nearest wall. Fast-forwarded images of me working, me leaving, then an empty lab for 7 hours until I returned. Nothing unusual. Except. Stop. Rewind 3 hours, 47 minutes. The feed reversed. For the briefest moment, there was a shimmer in the corner of the frame, like heat distortion above pavement on a summer day. Then nothing. Enhance Sector 4. The image zoomed in, pixelated, then clarified. Just empty space next to the growth rack. Radiation interference, Bell suggested. Asteria 7's orbit took us through a minor solar prominence at 0200 hours. I nodded absently, but something felt off. The shimmer had seemed too deliberate. Too localized. Over the next few days, I documented more anomalies. My coffee mug relocated to impossible places. Sample containers rearranged. Once, I found my notebook open to a page where I'd been sketching theoretical xenobiological systems, with an elegant correction to my diagram drawn in a silvery substance I couldn't identify. I began staying up through the station's artificial night cycle, pretending to sleep while watching the lab through half-closed eyes. On the 6th night, my vigilance was rewarded. The shimmer appeared again, this time coalescing into something more substantial, a silhouette, tall and graceful, moving with fluid precision between the sample tables. I lay perfectly still, controlling my breathing, as the figure bent over my moss cultures. Then it turned, and I caught my first clear glimpse. She, for the figure was unmistakably feminine in form, had skin that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously, like polished opal. Her eyes were large, luminous, with vertical pupils that adjusted visibly as she scanned the room. Where human ears would be, she had elegant structures that elongated backward, reminiscent of fins or wings. Beautiful. Alien. Impossible. As if sensing my scrutiny, she turned sharply toward me. Our eyes met, hers phosphorescent blue, mine undoubtedly wide with shock, and for one eternal moment, neither of us moved. Then she vanished, not with a dramatic flash or fade, but simply by stepping sideways into a space that shouldn't have existed. I sat up so quickly that my vision blurred. Belle. Did you see that? See what, Dr. Reed? Your vital signs suggest you were in REM sleep until 4.2 seconds ago. I swore under my breath. Either the AI was malfunctioning, or whatever I'd seen could manipulate station systems. Neither option was comforting. The next morning, after triple-checking that the lab doors were sealed, I addressed the empty room. I know you're here. I don't know how or why, but I know what I saw. No response, of course. I felt ridiculous, until I noticed the moss. It had rearranged itself overnight into a new pattern, unmistakably resembling a spiral galaxy. Is this communication? I touched the edge of the growth medium. Are you trying to tell me something about where you're from? No answer, but when I checked my coffee mug, I found it filled with a liquid that wasn't coffee, a clear fluid that sparkled with tiny points of light, like liquid starlight. I analyzed it immediately: water, with trace minerals and an unidentifiable compound that seemed to shift its molecular structure when observed. I didn't drink it, but I kept it. Over the following days, I left deliberate offerings, complex protein structures, crystalline formations, mathematical equations projected onto screens. They disappeared and were replaced with objects of increasingly bizarre complexity: a perfect dodecahedron that hummed when touched, a strand of material that changed color with my thoughts, a tiny sculpture made of what appeared to be solidified light. I'm calling you Lysandra, I announced to the empty lab one evening. After the ancient Greek word for liberator, because you've certainly liberated me from boredom. A soft sound like distant wind chimes responded, and the air near the sample table shimmered. She appeared gradually this time, like a photograph developing, first outline, then detail, then the subtle movements that indicated life, the slight rise and fall of her chest, the curious tilt of her head. Lysandra studied me with those phosphorescent eyes, then deliberately reached out and touched the edge of my notebook. Where her fingers met the paper, silvery lines spread, forming intricate patterns that resolved into what looked like a star chart. You're home? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, a surprisingly human gesture, then pointed to a specific configuration of stars. Her finger left a glowing trail in the air. Far away, I'm guessing. I tried to smile. You're a long way from home. She made a sound then, like crystal striking crystal, and pointed to the floor, then made a sweeping gesture that encompassed the entire station. Here. This is your home now. Another sound, sharper this time, and she shook her head. Her hand moved downward, pointing insistently at the floor. Below. There's something below the station. A nod, followed by that crystalline sound again, approval, perhaps. Will you show me? Lysandra hesitated, her luminous eyes studying me with an intensity that made me acutely aware of how alien we were to each other. Whatever calculations she was making behind those phosphorescent eyes, they eventually resolved in my favor. She extended her hand, for long fingers and an opposable thumb, not so different from my own, and waited. I reached out slowly, expecting my hand to pass through hers like some holographic projection. Instead, her skin was solid, cool and smooth like polished stone warmed by distant sunlight. The contact sent a jolt through me, not electrical, but something deeper, as if some fundamental barrier between two realities had momentarily dissolved. Through the station's corridors we moved, her form sometimes solid, sometimes translucent, as if she existed partially in another dimension. She led me to a maintenance shaft I'd never had reason to explore, then to a panel in the floor that looked like ordinary station architecture but opened at her touch to reveal a passageway that shouldn't have existed. As we descended into the unknown space beneath Asteria, 7, Bell's voice crackled over my communicator, distorted by interference. Dr. Reed, your location is non-congruent with station schematics. Please confirm your status. I switched off the device. Whatever lay below, I suspected Bell, and by extension, my corporate employers, weren't meant to know about it. The passage opened into a vast chamber that defied the physical dimensions of the station above. The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescence, revealing geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. At the center stood what I could only describe as a throne, though it resembled no seat of power from human history. It was a crystalline structure that appeared to grow from the floor, with branches extending upward like a tree made of light. Lysandra moved toward it with reverence, then turned to face me. Her expression was solemn, expectant. What is this place? I whispered, though there was no one else to hear. In answer, she placed her hand on a panel near the throne. The entire chamber resonated, and the air filled with points of light that coalesced into moving images, stars exploding, worlds forming, civilizations rising and falling, all in silence. A projection system, I realized, but one beyond any technology humans had developed. Then came the message from Bell that would change everything. Incoming transmission from research vessel Hyperion, ETA 72 hours. Full crew complement. Stated purpose, complete inventory and evaluation of Asteria, 7 for potential decommissioning. Lysandra's reaction was immediate, her form flickered, her eyes widened in what I recognized, despite our differences, as alarm. Whatever secret she guarded beneath Asteria, 7, others were coming who might not understand. Might not protect it. We had 3 days to decide what to do. The Library of Forgotten Stars. 72 hours. The countdown loomed in my mind like a detonation timer as I paced the hidden chamber beneath Asteria, 7. Lysandra watched me with those luminous eyes, patient but clearly troubled. We need to communicate better, I told her, gesturing between us. Charades and moss arrangements aren't going to cut it when there's a research vessel full of scientists about to dock. She tilted her head, then approached the crystalline throne. With graceful movements that seemed almost ritualistic, she placed both hands on its surface. The structure hummed, vibrations running through the floor beneath my feet, and a section of the wall slid open to reveal another chamber beyond. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? I muttered, following her through the doorway. The new room took my breath away. Suspended in mid-air were hundreds, no, thousands, of crystalline objects, spheres, cubes, dodecahedrons, and shapes that defied Euclidean geometry. Each one glowed with internal light, pulsing in what seemed like coordinated patterns. A library, I breathed, understanding dawning. These are records, aren't they? Lysandra made that chiming sound again and reached for one of the floating crystals, a translucent sphere no larger than an apple. As her fingers touched its surface, it brightened dramatically and began to emit soft tones in complex sequences. She brought it to me, holding it out like an offering. Hesitantly, I accepted it. The moment the crystal touched my skin, a jolt ran through me, not painful, but intense, like suddenly remembering something I'd never known. Images flooded my mind, a civilization of beings like Lysandra, cities built of light and living crystal, ships that traversed space by folding it rather than traveling through it. And then, catastrophe. A wave of energy that destroyed worlds. Survivors fleeing. Repositories like this one, hidden throughout the galaxy, containing the sum total of their knowledge, their art, their history. Guardians left behind. Sentinels. Waiting. When the vision faded, I found myself on my knees, gasping. Lysandra knelt beside me, her expression concerned. Your people, I managed. They were almost wiped out. I gestured around us, this is everything that remains. She nodded solemnly. And you're its guardian. For how long? How long have you been here, Lysandra? She touched my temple gently, and another image formed in my mind, stars shifting position, galaxies rotating fractionally. Time passing. A lot of time. Thousands of years. I guessed. Tens of thousands. The chiming sound again, affirmative. I sat back, trying to process the enormity of it. And Asteria 7 was built right on top of you, wasn't it? Humans constructed this station without ever realizing what lay beneath. Another nod, along with a sensation that felt like wry amusement. So what now? I asked. The Hyperion arrives in, I checked my wrist display, 68 hours. Its crew will conduct a full inventory. They'll want to examine every inch of this station. How do we keep them from finding this place? Lysandra stood, extending her hand to help me up. The gesture was so human, so familiar despite her alien appearance, that it made my chest ache with a peculiar mix of emotions. I took her hand and rose. She led me to another crystal, this one shaped like a many-pointed star. When I touched it, I saw the construction of Asteria 7, but from a perspective impossible for human engineers. I saw how Lysandra had subtly influenced the design, ensuring that certain systems would mask the presence of her hidden sanctuary, how she had manipulated the station's scanners and sensors to create a blind spot. You've been hiding in plain sight all this time, I realized. But these new visitors will bring their own equipment, their own scanning technologies. They might detect anomalies your safeguards can't account for. Lysandra's expression darkened, and she moved to a different crystal, a pyramid that pulsed with red light. The vision it gave me was dark, violent, her people had defenses. Ways to ensure their repositories remained undiscovered. Including methods of eliminating threats. I pulled my hand away, shaken. No. Absolutely not. These are my colleagues, my species. There has to be another way. She studied me for a long moment, then inclined her head slightly, not agreement, exactly, but acknowledgement of my position. She guided me to yet another crystal, this one a complex geometric shape that seemed to fold in on itself impossibly. The vision it contained was different, a detailed schematic of Asteria 7 systems, highlighting vulnerabilities, points where her technology interfaced with human construction. Places where, with the right adjustments, the station's shield against external scans could be extended to better conceal what lay beneath. You want me to modify the station's systems, I said slowly. Make your hiding place more secure. The chiming sound again, emphatic this time. I can try, I told her. But I'm a biologist, not an engineer. And even if I succeed, what happens when the Hyperion leaves? When the next ship comes, or the next? How long can we keep this secret? Lysandra's expression became thoughtful. She moved to the center of the library, where the largest crystal of all hung suspended, a perfect sphere that seemed to contain galaxies within its depths. When she gestured toward it, it didn't come to her hand but expanded, growing until it was large enough to engulf both of us. Inside the sphere, I saw possibilities, futures branching like neural pathways. In one, I helped Lysandra hide, keeping her secret safe through deception and technical manipulation. In another, I revealed her existence to select scientists I trusted, forming a small group of human allies who would protect her sanctuary. In a third, more radical vision, her existence became public knowledge, changing humanity's understanding of the universe forever. Each path carried risks. Each had consequences that rippled outward, affecting not just us but potentially the entire course of human development. When the vision ended, I found myself sitting beside Lysandra on the chamber floor, my mind reeling with possibilities and responsibilities I'd never asked for. You're giving me a choice, I said quietly. You're letting me decide what happens next. She nodded, her luminous eyes holding mine. There was trust there, but also caution. She had been burned before, I suspected, by species who weren't ready for what she represented. Bell, I said, activating my communicator. Run a diagnostic on the station's external sensor array. I need to know exactly how it interfaces with our shield harmonics. Processing, the AI responded, its voice still distorted in the chamber. May I inquire as to the nature of this investigation, Dr. Reed? I looked at Lysandra, who watched me intently. Let's just say I'm conducting an experiment in interspecies cooperation, I replied. And I need you to be very, very discreet about it. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. With Lysandra's guidance and Bell's reluctant assistance, I'd convinced the AI that this was a classified research protocol. We modified Asteria 7 systems to strengthen the concealment of the underground chambers. I learned more about Lysandra's technology than any human had ever known, how her people had harnessed quantum entanglement not just for communication but for physical manipulation of matter and energy. This could revolutionize everything, I told her as we worked. Faster-than-light travel, unlimited clean energy, communication across any distance instantaneously, your knowledge could solve humanity's greatest challenges. She responded by showing me another crystal, this one containing visions of worlds where species acquired technologies they weren't ethically prepared to handle. The results were invariably catastrophic. Fair point, I conceded. We don't exactly have the best track record with powerful new technologies. 24 hours before the Hyperion's arrival, we completed our modifications. According to Bell's simulations, the enhanced shielding would prevent standard scans from detecting the anomalous space beneath the station. But one problem remained, me. I don't think I can lie convincingly enough, I admitted to Lysandra as we sat in the hidden library. Not to an entire research team, some of whom I've worked with before. They'll know something's different about me. She considered this, then rose and walked to a crystal I hadn't seen before, a delicate structure that resembled a snowflake. When she brought it to me, the vision it contained was simple but profound, truth, carefully presented. Selective revelation. You think I should tell them, I said, surprised. Not everything, but something. She made a gesture with her hands, like she was measuring out a small portion of something. A controlled introduction, I nodded slowly. Starting with what they're most likely to understand and accept. The chiming sound came again, approving. And you'll show yourself to them? Lysandra hesitated, then shook her head. Instead, she pointed to the moss cultures in my lab, then to the various artifacts she had created for me over the weeks. Evidence of an intelligence, but not direct contact, I translated. Let them draw their own conclusions, form their own hypotheses. She nodded. That's actually brilliant. Scientists respect evidence. If I present them with phenomena they can't explain but can observe reliably, they'll be fascinated, not threatened. I spent my last night alone preparing my lab, arranging Lysandra's gifts in a carefully curated display. I wrote detailed notes describing my discoveries, framing them as mysterious phenomena I'd been documenting for months. Not quite the truth, but not exactly a lie either. The Hyperion docked at precisely 0800 station time. I watched from the observation deck as the sleek research vessel connected with Asteria 7's main airlock. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dr. Reed. The first person through the airlock was Dr. Theodora Vaughn, a stern astrophysicist I'd collaborated with years earlier. You look different. Has solitude been treating you well? I forced a smile. It's given me time to focus on my work. Speaking of which, I've made some rather unusual discoveries I'd like to share with the team. She raised an eyebrow. Oh. Your transmissions mention standard xenobiological studies. Nothing extraordinary. That changed recently, I said, leading her toward the lab. I've encountered evidence of, well, I'm not entirely sure what. But I think you'll find it compelling. As the research team filed into my lab, their expressions shifted from professional interest to stunned fascination. The crystalline objects seemed to brighten in the presence of multiple observers, as if responding to their attention. The moss samples formed new patterns before their eyes. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Vaughn whispered, examining one of the artifacts. "These structures shouldn't be stable under standard physics." "Yet there they are," I replied. "I've documented everything, but I'm at the limits of what I can analyze with our equipment here." One of the younger researchers, a quantum physicist named Dr. Patel, looked up from his scanner with wide eyes. "These energy signatures, they're like nothing in our databases. Where did you find these artifacts?" "They appeared," I said simply, "after I began documenting anomalies in the biology lab. I have theories, but I wanted colleagues to verify my observations before speculating too wildly." For the next several hours, the team examined, measured, and exclaimed over Lyssandra's gifts. Their excitement was palpable, their questions endless. Not once did anyone suggest decommissioning the station. By evening, Dr. Vaughn was already composing messages to the Science Directorate, requesting extended funding and additional specialists. "This could be the discovery of the century," she told me, eyes bright with scientific fervor. "Evidence of non-human intelligence, possibly still present on or near the station." I nodded, feeling Lyssandra's presence nearby, unseen but attentive. "I think we need to proceed carefully. Whatever intelligence created these artifacts, it seems to be observing us, perhaps studying our reactions. We should show respect." "Agreed," Dr. Vaughn said firmly. "No aggressive scanning, no attempts to force contact. We observe, document, and wait for further gifts." That night, when the visiting scientists had retired to their quarters aboard the Hyperion, Lysandra appeared in my room. She studied me for a long moment, then did something she'd never done before. She smiled, a luminous expression that transformed her alien features into something achingly beautiful. She reached out, touching her cool fingers to my cheek in a gesture of what I could only interpret as gratitude. Then she placed something in my hand, a tiny crystal shaped like two spirals intertwined. When I looked into it, I saw not the past or possible futures, but a present moment, Lysandra and me, standing together in her crystal library, surrounded by the knowledge of her ancient civilization. But we weren't alone. A small group of human scientists worked alongside us, learning, understanding, growing. A partnership. A future where her knowledge wasn't hidden away, but carefully, gradually shared with those ready to receive it. "Is this an invitation?" I asked softly. Her chiming laugh filled the room like music, and she nodded. "I accept," I told her, closing my fingers around the crystal. "For both our peoples." As she faded from view, leaving me alone with the crystal warm in my palm, I realized that my solitude on Asteria 7 had ended in a way I could never have imagined. I had found not just company but purpose, to be a bridge between two civilizations, to help guide humanity toward a wisdom older than our solar system. Outside my window, the gas giant's swirling storms painted patterns across the sky, and somewhere below my feet, in chambers that defied physical space, the library of a vanished civilization waited to be rediscovered, one careful revelation at a time. The whispers in the void had become a conversation spanning stars and centuries, and I was privileged to be part of its translation.